Hello everyone, we're back for another Candid Craic and we've got a special guest all the way in the US. And I hear Richard taking off in the airplane again. Richard, how are you as well?
I'm very well, Oscar, thank you.
Okay. Hello Gemma, how are you?
Hello Oscar, I'm doing great.
Excellent.
It's very special to be coming from China and then living in the United States and then talking with people who are in China.
Well, that's a great introduction of yourself, right? So talk a little bit more about your background, Gemma.
My background. So while I focus on my professional background, I often jokingly say I have traversed the entire academic spectrum from the very humanity to the very STEM. So my undergraduate was in English language literature in Shanghai, China, which one of the 4 best English programs in China. And then my master was in business administration, MBA, and then my doctorate is in educational leadership. And now I work in an engineering school at the University of Pittsburgh. So see, that's the whole spectrum. That good enough? Anything else you want to follow up?
That's a good intro. And so the second part is more, so explain a little bit more about what you do at the moment.
So what I do, I would say I have, like most times I find myself, I would get myself involved in very, very different things, but underneath it's very, very aligned. So a very big part of my work, probably 70 to 80% of my time is spent on National Science Foundation funded project or to be funded in the proposal developmental stages. So right now I have one funded project on circular economy, which is a new NSF program. NSF stands for National Science Foundation in the United States, one of the biggest federal funding agencies for science, fundamental science research, scientific research. So currently I'm working on this GCR, standing for Growing Convergence Research. It's a new NSF program started in 2019, and the team I'm working on is one of the first 19 teams in the first cohort. And our topic is circular economy. So we have, so it's a very diverse team. So we have 9 faculty members, all different kinds of engineers, plus anthropologists, plus economists, and then 19 to about 17 graduate students and postdocs. So it's about 25-person team. And my role on the team is kind of like the team person, right? Looking over the convergence process, right? Make sure just hold the team together. And the 2 best compliments I got from my team members about my role is, one is I'm like a catalyst, right? So the catalyst doesn't participate directly in the chemical reaction, but it instigates it. So and the second is one of my team members said, of all the diverse disciplines on our team, you give us a unifying presence. So I find that just so beautiful because, I often talk about ecosystem awareness. It's a lot of times we feel like it's the PI, principal investigator's role to hold the vision, but the principal investigator typically comes from a specific discipline, and most times the engineers, so inevitably when the principal investigator comes up, she or he is the team leader, but he also has a very, very strong disciplinary background. So a person like me is kind of like Geneva, like neutral. So I have much more potential to give that unifying presence or enhance that role of the principal investigator. So that, in a nutshell, is what I do with the NSF funded science projects. So I find there's a lot of need because of this shift in NSF funding initiative, and I'm really excited in learning more. It's what I've always wanted to do, is in bridging the knowing doing gap, as I call it, right? Translating theory into practice and then feed the insight in practice back into theory to continue to develop it. So that was one part of my work. And the other part of my work is very much in the field of social innovation. So as a matter of fact, today, I just completed this 1-year project called Adaptive Space. So it's, okay, it's not completely completed. It's one portion of it is complete. One, the main portion of it, it's the adaptive space learning group. So in that learning group, so in this group, we had about 25 people from all over the world. Like we call ourselves the hopeful monsters. So a little bit on the fringe of the existing systems, hoping to attract the system towards a place of more equity. So like we have 3 themes, right? Seeing the complexity, seeing the inequity, and grappling together. So we were together for 12 weeks. For 2 hours each week, we meet. We met and we talk about all topics just related to complexity and inviting people's lived experience. And that was really just something very, very special. So for me, how these two relate to each other, they are all about bridging the knowing and doing gap, all about applying complex leadership. And they also complement each other so well, because in academia, my brain is driven, and in the social innovation adaptive space, my heart is driven. So the energy just is a very like symbiotic relationship between these two. So that's my professional life in a nutshell.
So can you, I think there's probably 3 things we're going to ask you to go a little deeper into. So first of all, can you explain what you mean by a circular economy? Because it's quite an abstract idea to lots of people. So what is a circular economy? What are you trying to do with it?
Wow, I'm probably not the best person to answer that, because like I said, I'm like more like the catalyst, so I don't participate directly in circular economy research. Yeah, but actually I just gave my convergence leadership seminar today, where my team were just talking about the circular economy, and how one of my team member was saying so before she started this project, she was, she's academia, but she was working primarily with industry, right? And she felt like this project gave her, like, by her researching on circular economy, this is like a way for her to translate it to her industry partners. And circular economy as a term was, in the United States, is mostly promoted by a foundation called the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And circular economy means very different things in different countries, in different contexts, right? So, and we did a literature review on circular economy as one of our first things. So we want to get it published in Nature, but we got rejected. So, but there's no shame in that. Nature's rejection rate is so high. And, we looked at just like how Europe looks at circular economy, how China looks like circular economy, how United States looks at circular economy. Like, I don't have like a standard definition to it. You would have probably better to ask the PI and the other team members for that one.
Okay, so let's move into the second one about the idea that you're the project glue. You're gluing everybody together. So what is it exactly that you do to glue people together in a project this complex and this interdisciplinary?
Oh, I love the word you use, glue. The word my team used was catalyst, but there has been times, many times in my life, when people referred to me as a glue, like in different work contexts and team contexts. So it's very, very similar. So what I do was I had this blog post, and I talk about 3 containers of transformation. So that, in a nutshell, like, summarized what I do, right? So one of the containers was container for affective relationship. So that's exactly what I do with this complexity, with this convergence leadership seminar I just referred to earlier today. So basically the idea is, with all the different disciplines come together, they are all very bright people, among the best in the world in their field, and with very different disciplinary perspectives. You bet there are going to be frictions, right? So that friction is what propels the team forward, where innovation comes from. But however, too much friction can really break the team, right? So like in complex leadership theory, we say task-related conflict is very good. However, you don't want to turn into a personnel-related conflict, right? So and it could easily happen that way. If I always disagree with you, you're going to suspect that I don't like you, right? So when one of the things I do is I hold containers for affective relationship, where we all come out of our throne, like we all have a little kingdom of our discipline, but let's all come out of our throne and come to the middle place, and just talk about things of common concern, right? Like relating from commonality instead of difference. So this year I'm doing the convergence research. So where we talk about all kinds of topics. So it's monthly. So it's monthly seminar for 1.5 hours, right? So for February and March, we talk about facilitation skills. How might we facilitate our interaction? And there are all kinds of techniques we can do that. And then for March, I'm talking about the complex way of seeing and sense making. So actually, I talk about storytelling, and that I learned that from Dialogic Cafe with Alexis. That's where I some of the materials I learned from there. And I also use another method called the debate, which is from deep democracy. So those are all like very, very useful things for the team to like very relevant topics, but everybody can relate somewhat equally because nobody has expertise in it, kind of except me, right? So, and then like last year was really tough with the COVID, and it was also the first year our project. And I said we were also the first cohort. So there wasn't really some kind of a roadmap we could follow, right? So it's a new team. Most of our team members haven't worked together. It's a new topic. And with COVID, so like the stress level was very high. So, I detected that through talking with people, through being present for all the meetings. So like, it's the equivalent of convergence leadership last year. What I did was a conversation cafe, right? We talk about VUCA psychology, right? Does uncertainty necessarily invite anxiety? We talked about personal commitment, right? So if the project is so hard, what is the personal commitment that keeps you going? And we talk about the nature of the beast. So what is the nature of complex adaptive systems, and why are they different than your regular technical systems? We talked about the human in the equation, so why are we having anthropologists and economists on the team? So why it's important that we take into consideration the human factors while we design those technical solutions. So like basically the idea is you would detect like the pain points, the tension points on the team, and you would make the invisible visible by providing this safe space for everybody to be able to come and relate to each other like affectively, develop affective relationship. So that was one of the main things I did. And another main thing I did was I call it the second container is container for deep convergence or intensive transdisciplinary team. So, like despite what you say, and you were founded for convergence research, a lot of teams, when you get founded, teams very quickly go back to their disciplinary silos, because it's just the easiest thing to do, right? So when we did our little evaluation last year, 6 months into our project, the team were saying, we are so busy with low-hanging fruit, and our hands are full, and we're not doing what we're supposed to do. That came out of the team. So you're gonna develop, it doesn't happen naturally, right? So that's what is containers for transformation, for change. So what I did was I developed this process I call that follows this divergence convergence diamond, right? So where in our the divergence parties in our student meeting is we would talk about very diverse topics. So we explore the frontier, and then we also have topic owners who come from a discipline, but when they present in a very open posture and invite input from other disciplines. So that's the divergence. And the inflection point is, we call it 3-minute pitch, where the students, in order to qualify a 3-minute pitch, the idea has to be sponsored by at least 3 disciplines. So, right, the students have been like tiger cubs playing with each other. And when they find an idea worth exploring, they will come to the whole team meeting where their professors are there. They would pitch that idea. And then the team would make a decision whether to move forward with that idea or not. And then that's when you move to the convergence cycle. And you start a convergence circle where it's organically developed interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary team. So that was kind of like how you hold the container to make sure, the way I share with my team, I call it's like the 3 horizons, right? McKinsey's 3 horizons. So your core competency, where you're starting, is your first horizon, is your stronghold. But if we are funded specifically to do convergence research, we have to move up the convergence ladder, right? To be more and more convergent. So that's your 3rd horizon. Is you're gonna cover both all your 3 horizons, right? So you're gonna have, we are good at the 1st horizon, so the containers are already there. So we need to establish containers for the 3rd horizon, right? So that is another thing I do. And then a 3rd thing I do is network analysis. So which is one of my my main research methods from my doctorate study. So I will take the network like snapshot of the team's network every half a year. So, and then we'll see how the network has evolved. And it serves a very, very beautiful diagnostic tool to see who is interacting with whom, and what are the sub-communities, and who are the informal leaders that we can leverage to put in strategic positions. So these are 3 main things I do. Wow, I think I sound pretty busy. Now I know I'm busy all the time.
The way that I would look at it, and I think it's oversimplification, but it's also gets to the heart of the matter. You're explaining to people how work works. I mean, it's largely what I do as well. It's like work is not just you sitting in front of your computer doing your little tiny bit. It's all of this human interaction, and it's pushing people into deeper spaces they're not so comfortable with. And one of the things you talked about is when someone says, "Oh, I see the world differently." That's not what the listener hears. The listener hears, "You're stupid." And so it's not I see the world differently and let's discuss it. It's, I'm right, you're wrong, you're stupid. And so then you get the conflicts and the interpersonal stuff. So it's really interesting that you're doing that, because I think that's perhaps one of the big weaknesses in most companies and institutions, is they don't know how work works at the human level, because the human sciences and organizations are so bad. They're just drawing from stuff that's out of date and was not particularly rigorous in the first place. So that really covered that. And I want to move into the 3rd question I had, which is the adaptive space. So you send us a slide deck, and you've put adaptive spaces between operational and entrepreneurial space. And so there's something around ambidextrous organizations going on there as well. So can you explore, what this 3rd way space actually looks like, and what people are doing in it?
Yeah, that's talking about leadership research, leadership theorizing, right? So I would say, the adaptive leadership and the administrative leadership are all pretty well established in leadership literature, right? So the adaptive leadership are kind of like the R&D, right? They always come up with new ideas, kind of covering the 3rd horizon, coming up with the disruptive ideas itself for the company, for the organization. The administrative leadership kind of stands for the bureaucratic system that is very interested in standardizing and that kind of mass production and efficiency, right? So those 2 kind of leadership were very well established. And what complex leadership theory contributes to the literature is enabling leadership in the middle that connects the adaptive leadership and the administrative leadership, and along the line of emergence. So basically, the enabling leadership operates through the adaptive space, right? Because I mean, too many times, even like I mean, think about how many times, so if you are like a little peon in your organization, you don't have any position of power. So, but you have a lot of adaptive leadership, right? So like you really want to work on some new ideas. So too many times, like the person would be working on the idea until the idea is like really big and put in so much time and effort. And then you would go to people in the administrative leadership. And usually you get a very happy result that says, okay, I support this and let's go ahead. Or a very sad result. You say, I don't support this. No, right? And in a bureaucratic society and the organization, too many times your chance of getting no is so high. So that's how innovation doesn't happen and gets stifled, right? However, if you have spaces like that where like adaptive leadership, people who are very adaptive, have those ideas, could interface with the people who are in administration safely, right? In a safe way, and also have that constant communication, constant interaction. That's how innovation happens, is in a very well supported interactive dynamics, right? So if that could happen, just so much more ideas would be able to bubble up, and just like to survive and thrive and lead the organization to where it needs to be, where it needs to go, right? So that's what enabling leadership. Now, it's important to think that it's important to say that it's not leadership is not leader, right? So one person can play all three roles, can have all three leadership. So one person can be adaptive, can have the adaptive leadership, can have the enabling leadership, and can be the can like exercise administrative leadership. So like one person can play as many leadership roles as they can.
Thanks. So the way, the metaphor I use here, and I said ambidextrous organization. So the classic is, in an ambidextrous organization, you've got the part of the organization exploiting the known, and another part exploring the unknown. Okay, so that's the classic. And the way I look at the bit in the middle is you're basically when you're bringing everyone into the middle, it feels like you're doing the work with your wrong hand. So I call it a tridextrous organization, because you're like, I could just do this so much easier if I use my right hand. And so you've got that discomfort of, why am I being asked to do things in a way that is slower and is more uncomfortable, and it feels clumsy. So you're operating in that space. So can you just, I know Oscar would ask you this anyway, but I'm going to jump in and ask you. So what kind of things do you do in that space? Do you have a 2 or 3 processes or methods or things that you can take us through as to what that enabling third way space looks like?
That's a good question. Yes, there are processes. So I can give you 2 examples. Like one is a process called Wise Crowd. So they're both from a cluster of methods called Liberating structures. So this Wise Crowd, I tell you the result first. So we did this twice with my team, and twice team members came up to me and said, this method is so liberating. It gave me a chance to ask questions I didn't dare to ask. So it's actually a very simple process. So you basically play the role. So if you are the person with the challenge, you play the role of a consultant, and the rest of your team, you play the role of client, and the rest of your team members become the consultants, right? So, and then you are given a short period of time, like 2-3 minutes to present your challenge. And then the team members can ask you clarifying questions. Clarifying questions are not probing questions. The assumption is what you have presented is enough, right? So clarify what they did not understand. And then you turn off your video, you turn off your microphone. In the Zoom world, in the real world, you turn your back to your team so they don't see your face. And then they will deliberate. They are consultants. They will talk about like what they see, what they could offer to you, whatever, right? In a period of 5 to 7 minutes. And then you come back, you turn on your video, and then you tell your consultants, what was helpful and what further questions you have, and then you tell them what you took away. So it is a little process where you deliberately centering, questioning, and you make it legitimate to ask questions. So many times, I don't know if all companies are like that, but in academia, you're supposed to be smart and know everything. Asking questions is hard. It's a little bit against culture. So you introduce process like that where you make it fun, you make it totally natural. I was surprised. People come to me like, I've been wanting to ask a question, I never dared to, right? So like I dared to ask it now. So this was one, and another one is there. Like, if you really want to build a learning organization, there really need to be a mechanism to harvest the learn, in a non-threatening way. Because a lot of learning, you call the growing pains, because a lot of learning is painful, right? So like what another method I like to use is called truths. It's kind of a Russian word, which stands for like ways to solve ingenious problems. Basically, what it is kind of behind it is like the wrong theory, right? So like if you want to do something, like do something totally to the opposite. The first time I was introduced to that was in an SF workshop. Like a person got a career award. A career award is basically like, if you get an SF career award, like you are set for your career almost. It's like you are the best of the best in your researcher. So she got a career award for just doing that wrong theory. So basically what it is okay, so you're gonna design like something that help a person who couldn't move her hand to open the door, right? So like, okay, so your first step, you would design it to humiliate and hurt her. So, right, and then you would come up with strategy, and then you would come back, you say, okay, so how can I really design it? You kind of like shed light on the dark side of things, right? So this is how the truth works. So the first step is you would say, okay, so what can we do to completely mess this up and make sure it is a waste of time and as detailed as possible, right? Come like with a list of things, and then you only tell them step by step. And the second step is, wow, is there anything even close to what you listed, is even close to what we're doing, right? So be ruthless. And then people would, like tentatively move something there. And then step 3 is, well, do you have any suggestions, strategies in how we can stop doing that to make sure that we are utilizing our time effectively? It's kind of like little fun things like that, which, it enabled people to say what they want to say, but they don't dare to say, or they don't feel it's right to say, out of social pressure, or like whatever. So I hope
that's great. That's good. I've put Oscar through a little bit of the first type of those before. I've had him turn his back to a critical crowd, but we went a bit more Pixar in terms of their job was to rip his idea apart. I mean, it was right at the end of the day, and everyone knew each other, and everyone was having fun. But the job was very Pixar. This is bad because, and then he had to redesign, and then then he had to redesign. And I do a similar thing in terms of in the corporate world. In the second point is, one is, how would you kill your company if you were a competitor? That, and right. The second one is, what is the worst day at work that you have? A hypothetical worst day. So they which people love. They just go, oh my God, this would happen. They go, right, now this hypothetical worst day. Start making sure that doesn't happen, and then you get into really interesting. So the same kind of things. So yeah, really interesting. Oscar, I've dominated. Please.
Actually, I want to go back, Gemma, at the start where you mentioned you seem to have somehow developed some kind of facilitation methods or process where you mentioned you have this mini pitch. So I'm quite intrigued by that. How is that something that existed, or is that something you developed from scratch? And how do you get to that?
Yeah, where I had what the.
Yeah, you mentioned that during that facilitation process, you have, let's say, those different disciplines coming together, and then 3 disciplines or 3 verticals actually had to then sort of vote, and then it would actually go to mini pitch. This is quite interesting to me. Is that something you developed yourself, or was that an existing approach that you borrowed?
So you're just asking the different facilitation approaches I'm using and where I learned that from, or did I came up with that or whatever? Okay, so that's a great question. Actually, I'm always very, even though I have a PhD, like I was very reluctant in getting my PhD because I feel PhDs are all like talks because I like to do, I'm always very attracted to like doing things. So I'm always like learning all kinds of very practical facilitation skills. So, I have this book on my table. So this was one of the places where I learned innovation for people, like Loma Institute, which is a place in Pittsburgh, and they do human-centered design. And they have just all kinds of like very cute little methods, right? This one I'm looking at the importance difficulty matrix, right? So like all kinds of facilitation methods to help to move like group processes. And then another one is so that was one cluster. Another cluster is liberating structures. So it's a very, very active community. And I also learned about facilitation from Candid, the Cognitive Edge. They have like base camp, and they teach you how to do complex facilitating. And then I also invent methods on my own. That's something that Dave Snowden said, and he said, if you don't understand the theory, and then you were doomed to use the method that worked the last time, right? So the other way of saying that is, if you understand the theory and you have some methods in your mind, you can always invent new methods like that meets that need of the team at that time and at that place on that occasion.
So what kind of methods you mentioned you kind of developed by yourself that sort of emerged over the last few months?
Like facilitation methods? Wow, it's hard for me to, it's now everything, everything is all like organic whole in my mind. It's hard for me to think of which one I developed myself and which one I learned from where. I have to think on that one a little bit. Okay,
it's the whole great artist steal. It's the great artist steal thing, Oscar. Is once you've stolen an idea, you can't remember that you've stolen it. You're just using it the whole time. And there are so many of these techniques, and it's just a matter of sort of semi-relating to this, Gemma. I mean, how? Yeah, I've tried to work with corporates and produce, use some of these techniques, and they don't understand what you're trying to do. And one of the things Oscar and I do is open space technology and that kind of, and it's just so the idea of sense making, and it's alien. So the struggle you've had that in a university, did you have similar struggles to get people to listen to this kind of stuff, and what did you do to get people on board?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had a tremendous difficulty at the university. When I first started, I was basically just slaughtered. It was like brutal. So the organization immune system kicks in on you, and you were just absolutely rejected. So within the current operating structure of the university, so that was where I sought to change, and where and I was very fortunate to be able to work on those National Science Foundation funded project. It's kind of like a little sandbox in concrete jungle, because you have several $1 million, and that's what you were asked to do. And out of accountability, a little bit fear driven, if that's what you are accountable for, and out of curiosity driven, a lot of the researchers who are drawn, even though they are embedded within the academic structure, if they are drawn to this type of research, they have a little bit of a different orientation, and also have a lot more openness in them. So I find my work within the existing operational system in higher education almost impossible. I just I just have to say that very, very honestly. And I find my work in those National Science Foundation funded project very, very fertile ground to play and explore.
So yeah, I having worked on and off in the university system, there are bits of university systems that you can do this in, but it's tiny. The dominance is still medieval style lecturing, and just do that rather than play around with stuff and do coaching and do techniques and push people into other spaces. So I understand the frustration. So how when you get, or is it impossible if you get these traditional academics who just go, no, I know everything, I'm the expert, because you've got this idea of expert, and I know you work in adaptive leadership, so adaptive and that kind of space where expertise is quite a long way down what you need to be a good leader. So that's a really interesting space to be playing around with, where you've got the expert saying, no, I know everything, and you're saying, well, you're probably only about a third of the way up the leadership ladder. How do you deal with that kind of challenge?
It is indeed very, very challenging. It's Yeah, it is indeed very challenging. I can give you like a moment I had. So last fall, me and a couple of colleagues were asked to host a workshop for another NSF program called Convergence Accelerator. So they have the future topic selection workshop. So what they do is they cluster fund, right? So they would start with funding like 10 topics and then see how the scientific community respond to it. And then they would select 2 ideas as their future cluster funding ideas. So we were asked to host one of those workshops. So it's again on circular economy, right? We call it circular economy from molecules to built environment. And it was like all the best researchers in the United States, at least in this realm, sustainability, circular economy, like a green type of researchers come, right? So like, and we were put in breakout rooms to talk about an idea, and very, very quickly you start to see the posturing, you know, and the posturing was so just obvious to see, you know, how like my discipline, like I'm the chemist, right? Like I'm the designer, right? I'm the civil engineer. So just how all this discipline, the posturing was just so obvious. And immediately I almost physically felt the air was sucked out of the room. You know, once you start that posturing, it's a very closed gesture. You know, you don't have that openness. So, you know, as we had 3 workshops that happened at the second workshop. So as we were reflecting as a team, you know, I said, I really need to say something. You know, I said at our next workshop, I need to send a few invitations or like give some like, you know, 10 essentials for the journey, right? When you go out on the adventure, you make sure you have your compass, you have warm blankets. So I said, this is like an adventure. So we're venturing into the unknown. So like I gave like a few principles as the essentials to bring on into this adventure to make sure it is an adventure instead of something mundane. Right? So right, one of the things, like I said, was we're gonna lean into the unknown. You know, like I said, you know, what the circular economy is gonna look like, we don't know yet. That's why we're exploring it, right? So like we're gonna kind of leave the known behind and venture into the unknown, and stop the posturing, but have more of a posturing as expertise, but have more of an open posture. So I don't know how it helped. You know, that was one thing. So that was one thing I would do. You asked me how I work with this challenge is like make the rule written. You know, like make the implicit explicit. Because we have we carry so many assumptions. But if we can lower the waterline and like let the iceberg up a little bit. So if we can say very explicitly what that's the other dialogic cafe, right? Culture is the way we do things here. If we can say very explicitly, this is the way we do things here in this convergence research, that helps a lot. So that was one thing I have found, which I was talking about is like the food and the exercise, you know, so that was like the food, right? And the exercise is all the processes you introduce to the mechanism you introduce to enable to operationalize those principles. So some of the processes that I have introduced you, like just how to seek feedback, how to check progress, right? So how to leverage collective wisdom to tackle challenges. So that's kind of like how, but I can't claim I have conquered this because like I feel like I haven't even started. I only got my feet wet, and I acknowledge it is a very, very, very tough challenge. You know, like if somebody has spent all their life accumulating that expertise and now all of a sudden you tell them, like so much of people's identity is tied in that, you know, so.
Yeah, I've got, so I'll talk a little bit about a couple of things I think are problematic in the why people don't listen to this kind of stuff, Gemma. So the first one is the notion of soft skills. You know, as soon as you start doing this kind of stuff, they go, oh, that's just the soft and fluffy, that doesn't matter. So the idea that the soft and fluffy is actually the hardest thing to do. You know, so there's a linguistic challenge, soft and fluffy. I hear that all the time in the work that I do. I don't do the soft and fluffy. I'm just doing the hard stuff, and you know, that kind of So that's one of the challenges. And the other challenge I've had, and I wonder if you've come across it before. So I've literally been at a dinner with rocket scientists. And so they, people building rockets to go and mine asteroids. And they feel totally okay to talk to me about my discipline, human behavior and management and leadership. They go, oh, no, we know all about this. I don't tell them how to do rocket science. Why do they think that they can tell me how to do leadership when they've never read they've maybe read one popular book on leadership? So do you come across that as well? Is that, oh, yeah, leadership is easy and this human behavior is an easy discipline, and I because I'm a proper scientist, I can go and talk to you about that, and I come across that all the time. So A, do you come across it, and B, what do you do about it when it happens?
Yeah, that's a great question. I come across that all the time. It's one of the biggest challenges I face. It's like the way I said it is two assumptions that can kill you. One is you assume if you have the technical competence that you have the people skill as well. Which is totally wrong, right? So I mean that's one simple video from Dave Snowden's team. Like he was talking about the Canadian and these four quadrants for domains, and he said, just because you know how to do rocket science doesn't mean you know how to do parenting, because rocket science is more in the complicated domain, and the parenting is more in the complex domain. So it's a very simple thing with distinguishing complicated from complex, right? So after we said that, one of my team members unmuted and she said, now I feel so much better because I used to feel I'm an engineer, I should know how to be a mom. She said, now I feel better. I feel like I have 3 kids. Still haven't got mothering down yet. And that doesn't mean I'm not a good engineer. So right, that's the first assumption that can kill you, right? If you know technical things, you know how to do human too. So basically that means if you know complicated things, you don't necessarily know complex things, and vice versa, right? So of course the other way is easier to understand. So, and the second, another assumption is that if you are a good individual contributor, you will be a good leader. Which is the second assumption that will kill you. Right? So you can be, that's what you say, a team of all stars is not necessarily an all-star team. You can be a star, but the team you lead is not necessarily a star. You can be the star that outshines everybody else and demotivates everybody. So what I do, it's very hard to tell a no at all anything. So usually what I do, wait till they fall and then pick them up. Because most of those, the reason I'm talking with them or working with them is because they understand there's a need for me. And a lot of times still there isn't enough space for me to do my work. So let them fall, and then pick them up. That's when people are open. That's where the open gesture is created, is when you face difficulties, you don't know how to tackle it. And then you would turn to people who really have the expertise. Right? That's kind of how you do parenting too. You can try to tell your children all you want, they don't listen to you. And then when they make a mistake, they get themselves stuck and they come to you and then they are open.
That's a great explanation, Gemma, about that model. What I'd like to talk about as well is more about sort of looking forward, right? So you mentioned already at the start for sort of leaning into the unknown. When we talk about the future, you talked about circular economy, although you said you're not the expert to explain it. But I actually want to go back to that, with the experience that you have and sort of looking forward, what do you see happening? What do you see emerging from that work that you are doing right now?
In the circular economy world? Is that what you mean, the circular economy world? So yes. What I see is the chemical engineer on our team, he's among the world's best polymer scientists, and his task on the team is to come up with a new kind of a thermoset. Like thermoset is a new word for me. It basically means a building material that is reversible. So right now, the way it is most of the thermosets are not recyclable. Right, so that's what we call team circular design. Is you need to start at the design stage. When you make the molecule, you want to make sure that they are reversible, can be recycled. So he said he said, basically since World War II, we have had a steady decrease in price because of the increase of efficiency in production. However, in recent years, we are starting to see price coming up again because of the scarcity of raw materials. So what we come to see is like circular economy is no longer something nice to do anymore, but it is something like necessary if humanity wants to continue to survive and maintain like, or even improve the standard of living and feed all these like ever-growing population. So I think it's really something seriously we need to think about. That's the thing, right? So in a complex adaptive system, the nonlinear relationship between cause and effect, right? So it's very hard for us to see the effect of our daily action. But it's important that we see that and adapt our individual behaviors as well as the collective behaviors, starting at the molecule, right? So circular economy is way more than recycling.
Yeah, I mean that's fascinating, and I work on a carbon neutral steel project, and I've also listened to people talk about, well, the future of building should be bamboo, because the bamboo forests regenerate in 3 years. So why aren't we using bamboo to build everything? Really interesting stuff. I want to again, so behind that, you need to do all the work you're doing. You need to do this kind of, how do you get interdisciplinary people working together in complex spaces and adaptive spaces and doing this kind of stuff, because you've got to get those conversations happening. So I want to push into the kind of the language I always use now is, when I'm framing stuff, is the future of work is not about the science of business administration. It simply isn't. The future of work is about understanding complexity science and a deep, broad and wide knowledge of human behavior. How does that resonate with you?
It resonates very, very deeply. Even today, I was saying, I said, just human beings is just the most complex adaptive system individual entity of the entire universe. We really just gonna just restore the humanity and make the space for full humanity to show up at work and in our education, right? I mean, the way work is the way it is has a lot to do with the way our education is done, right? Think about how much space for your full humanity there is in education. So that resonates very, very, very deeply with me. And that was truly the future I would like to be part of creating.
So this is gonna now ask be a very difficult question. So what actually, in an organization that takes these two dimensions seriously, right? We understand complexity science, we understand human behavior. What does that organization look like?
That's hard. I have to say we're only taking baby steps, towards it. I don't know of any organization that exists right now, because I think it has a lot to do with each individual's spiritual development as well, right? So like each individual's, like the entire humanity has to move forward on the evolutionary trajectory before we, like, not before, but in order to enable that kind of organization to happen. But I could, like, I can say just a few things that I can think of. One of them is like, okay, I'll just say this. So the adaptive space, like social innovation side that I just did, the tagline we came up with is adaptive space for adult development where learning and belonging are intertwined. So I think for me that would have take a glimpse into what that kind of organization would look like, where there will be abundance of learning, where it supports the holistic adult development in an environment of belonging. So too many times learning doesn't happen because there isn't a sense of belonging. Like there's suspicion, fear, politics, whatever, right? Competition, right? And the other way is also true. Belonging doesn't happen because there isn't learning. There isn't enough, upward movement. So it's all stagnant, right? That's one of the wisdom, in organization that is mired in politics. It can't be a growth-oriented organization. If it's a growth-oriented and a learning organization, everybody's busy learning and developing. Where do they have time for politics? So I would say my answer would be, you know, learning, it would be very strong, as well as belonging is very strong, and they form a symbiotic relationship.
That takes me to the last question, which we ask all our interviewees, which we call the $9 trillion questions. We basically, so the idea is based around the idea that there's about $9 trillion of unrealized value in organizations because of outdated methods of doing things. So I think you've already explored a lot of that. So I'm gonna push it a little bit higher. It's an existential question. You know, you're talking about circular economies and renewable stuff, et cetera, et cetera. If we don't get this right, potentially the world burns. So it's an existential challenge. So what will the world look like if all of the work you're doing becomes injected into all of the organizations in the world?
But I mean, there are philosophers that have envisioned futures like that, right? So like, for example, like I'm Chinese, and Confucius has a picture like that, right? Where it's like basically everybody is happy and everybody is given the enabling conditions to achieve their highest potential, not only in the material way, but also, you know, in all the, like, what does the World Health Organization say what well-being is? You know, the physical, the relational, the emotional, the spiritual, just all the aspects of what it means to be a human being, and it is well cared for. And then also human being restored his place in the natural ecology, in the cosmos, right? It's instead of this kind of dominance over, which is I mean, it's very much prevalent in organization as well, right? Instead of human like dominating everything, but human is part of this ecosystem where it is in its place, and it has this symbiotic relationship with all the other things in its environment. So I think so many philosophers dreamed about it.
Are you hopeful that we can bring about this kind of world?
Absolutely. I'm absolutely hopeful. You know, the way I think about it is, it's right now where humanity is kind of like a teenager. You know, it's kind of lost its naivete as a child, and it's trying to seek its identity as an adolescent. So sometimes it looks like we're going backward, but it's just this stage where we're exploring. I'm very hopeful that humanity as a whole will reach its adulthood, where we will be much more able to realize our potential.
So if humanity is a teenager, what is an organization? Is it a toddler? You know, are organizations even catching up with humanity, and is that one of the big problems?
Yeah, I would say, you know, I mean, I think in terms of complicated organizations that are good in the industrial age, and good at mass production, efficiency, right, standardization, and it's already an adult. I think we're pretty good at that kind of a bureaucratic triangle-shaped organization, right? So we're talking about more complex adaptive organizations that are better fitted in the current knowledge economy. So that we're probably only an infant, maybe not even a toddler. I mean, some organizations probably are toddlers, but overall it's like a little infants, you know, full of potential.
I think that's a great place to stop. Organizations full of potential. They're the kind of places I want to work. Thank you very much, Gemma.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Gemma. And thanks a lot, Richard, as well.